Welcome back! With the release of TBC v5.20, there are new improvements to the already available functionality of selection sets. This video will summarize and walk through these new improvements. Selection sets are used to group together objects that are constantly being used together for a more efficient and accurate selection. We can use the Selection Explorer to create and modify our selection sets. The Selection Explorer can be accessed from the Home ribbon. Upon import, every project will have one selection set, with all the objects associated to that imported file as shown here. And the selection palette reflects the objects that are currently selected. This will be important later when we create selection sets. There are multiple ways of creating a selection set. One of the methods you can create a selection set is by directly selecting objects using the Project Explorer. In this example, I have classified 4 point cloud regions and extracted point features for broadleaf trees, poles, and signs. If I wanted to create a selection set to represent the classified regions of high vegetation, ground, and poles and signs, I can simply multi-select these 3 regions using my Project Explorer, and this selection is mirrored in the selection palette. If I have objects selected but they're not being shown in the selection palette, select the Selection Snapshot button to refresh your selection. With the objects you desire in the selection palette, you can select Create New Selection Set and name your selection set. Likewise, we can also select objects straight from our visible views. If I wanted to select the broadleaf tree points on this corner to be in a selection set, I will simply multi-select all the points I need, and the selection is again mirrored in the selection palette. If you wanted to select all the broadleaf tree points, then you can do this using the various selection commands in TBC. For this example, I will use Select Similar command. Opening the Select Similar command, we can simply click any broadleaf tree point as the source object. Below in the properties, we can specify which similar property we want to select. I will go ahead and select only feature code BT, and all the points with the feature code BT has been selected, and the selection is mirrored in our selection palette, and we can go ahead and create a selection set with this selection. Similarly, we can add objects that have been selected into already existing selection sets as well. Previously, I created a selection set using my broadleaf tree points, but if I also wanted to add these objects to my ground object selection set, I would simply have to make sure all the objects I need are in the selection palette and select Add to Selection Set and choose which selection set to add to. As such, you can also delete objects from your selection set by selecting the objects from your selection palette or from your 3D or plan view and pressing Subtract the selection. By pressing this button with the selection set selected, TBC will remove your selection set, but the objects of that selection set will still be in your project. Alternatively, you can add objects to selection sets straight from the properties of the objects. Let's take the side of this building for example. If I wanted to add the scans from this station into a selection set, I would simply select the station in my 3D or plan view. And then, my station selection is reflected in the Project Explorer, and I can expand the station and open the properties of the scan, where I can apply the scan to an already existing selection set or create a new one as such. The same can be done for other objects like points and media files. Now that we have our selection sets created, there are different ways of filtering your views using the View Filter Manager. First, to view the objects of different selection sets, we can select the selection set we want to view using this drop-down menu and selecting Display All Members. Here, I can see all the objects of both broadleaf tree and building left. Second, if you want to see the objects that are shared between multiple selection sets, we select the selection sets and select Display Only Common Members. Here, I can see all the objects that are in both of these selection sets. Thirdly, if you want to see only the objects that are not selected, in the drop-down list we select Hide All Members. Here we can see all the objects that are not part of the broadleaf tree selection set. And that concludes this video. Check out our next videos and see you next time.